Berry the little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The scooter. One spring morning, Morris the Maybug decided to make himself a scooter. He spent the whole day sawing, drilling and hammering, and when he was finished, he painted the scooter black. Then he hurried to show his super scooter to his friends. The boys were all playing basketball in the meadow. Berry, Stanley, Balthazar, Eddie, Bubble and Alfonso. Look at my new scooter. I made it all myself.
Can I have a try?
No one can borrow it. It's mine.
I only want to try it for a minute.
We'd like to have a go on it too, then we'll give it back. I'm not lending it to anyone, Morris told them again. The boys were so busy arguing that they didn't spot Eddie, who grabbed the scooter and rode off on it. Stop! Bring it back! It's my scooter and I didn't lend it to you. I'm not lending it to anyone. Eddie slowed down and Morris soon caught up with him. Give me my scooter back.
Here you are. It doesn't go fast enough anyway.
Not fast enough? Look at this. Not fast enough? You can hardly keep up with me, he shouted with a laugh, but he didn't see a big pothole in the middle of the road.
Watch out, Morris!
Balthazar, Berry and Stanley all shouted at once, but it was too late.
Well, you've only got yourself to blame, Morris,
Balthazar said in a snooty tone. What happened, Morris? Are you badly scratched? Why aren't you boys helping him? The rose beetle asked the others. It's all Morris's fault. It doesn't matter how it happened. He's really hurt himself and you should have helped. Come back to my house, Morris, and I'll clean those nasty scratches for you. Rosita sat Morris down and washed his wounds with a warm, wet cloth. It doesn't look that bad now. Morris started to sob. It was all my fault because I was mean to the others. If I hadn't been so mean, it wouldn't have happened. Then don't be mean next time. Thank you for all your help, Morris said as he left. It was nothing. You'll feel better soon. Morris limped all the way back to his house. The minute he got home, he jumped into bed and he was soon fast asleep. The little Maybug woke up the next morning with a wonderful idea. He got out his paints and brushes. I'm going to paint you pink. Look at you. I've brought this for you. Thank you for helping me yesterday. It looks lovely. Did you paint it? Rosita asked. Yes, I thought you wouldn't like it black. I love it. I'm going to ride it over to Dolly's house. Be careful. Have a safe ride. Morris walked home and he was about to eat his lunch when he heard a knock at the door.
Hello, Morris,
Balthazar said first.
We came to see if you were feeling better.
Much better, thank you, Morris shrugged. I promise that I won't take your scooter again, Eddie said with an apologetic smile. I haven't got it anymore. I painted it pink and gave it to Rosita. But I can make a new scooter, Morris said. I promised Rosita that I won't be mean again. Everyone can have a go on my new scooter when it's finished. Hooray! Bubble shouted. Now would you all like a piece of apple pie? I baked it myself. Morris soon finished the new scooter. He painted it dark green. All the friends gathered in the meadow the next day and took turns to have a go on the two scooters.
Berry the little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The bicycle. One summer day, a pigeon delivered a parcel to Berry and Dolly. It was quite a big parcel and wrapped in pretty red paper and tied with a blue ribbon. Dolly read the note attached. "It's from the centipede! Hooray! He's coming to visit us soon, and he sent us this present." "To us?" Berry asked. "What do you mean? To me or you?" "It says in the letter that it's for us. It's a present for both of us, I suppose." "That's silly," Berry argued. "I'm sure it's meant to be for me because I was the one who found him in the snow last Christmas." "But he stayed at my house. I looked after him and made him tea," Dolly replied. "But I read him caterpillar stories from the storybook," Berry added. The red wrapping paper wasn't that strong and it soon tore open. Wheels poked out from underneath. "It's a bicycle," Berry exclaimed. "It's just perfect for me." "No, it's just perfect for me," Dolly insisted. "All right, you can have the bicycle if you want it so much. I'll be the bigger person. You're behaving like a silly baby." That upset Berry. "That's not fair. I'm going to be the bigger person and you're the silly baby. You can have the bicycle." In the end, neither of them took the bicycle. They walked away and left the half-unwrapped bicycle in the meadow. Not long after that, Balthazar the bee and Flutter the butterfly came by.
What do you think it is? Is it a bicycle?
Balthazar asked. "Yes, it looks like it," Flutter replied. "There's a note stuck to it. It's for Berry and Dolly from the centipede."
Let's take it to them,
Balthazar suggested. They touched the bicycle and the rest of the wrapping paper fell off. This made them laugh. "Look, it's a tandem. 2 people can ride it."
Let's have a go,
Balthazar said. "Hello, Berry. Hello, Dolly. We brought you your bike. You left it in the meadow," Flutter shouted. Berry and Dolly came outside. They saw Flutter and Balthazar on the bicycle and felt very silly. "Oh, it's a tandem. We can both sit on it. And we had such a fight about it." They made friends again and hugged each other happily. "What a super present. We wasted all our time quarrelling and we haven't made anything for the centipede. He could arrive at any minute. Let's make him a colourful windmill. We can use pretty petals," Flutter suggested. "Yes, that's a great idea," Berry and Dolly agreed. The 4 friends gathered red, purple, white, yellow and pink petals and made a windmill. Just then, the centipede arrived in a cart pulled by a mouse. The little mouse stopped in the meadow and the centipede climbed out. He gave Berry and Dolly a big hug. "I see you got my present. I hope you like it." "It's beautiful. We love it," Berry and Dolly said. "And we made you this windmill." The centipede stayed with Berry and Dolly for 10 whole days. They went for long rides on their bicycle. They played a lot. They had a very good time, but the happy days passed soon. "I have to go home now. I've had such a super time here." "Do come and visit us again next summer," Berry and Dolly said, as they waved goodbye to their friend.
Berry little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Sunflowers. Berry and Dolly planted sunflower seeds in the spring and watered the seeds until little shoots soon appeared. The shoots grew into little plants that grew into big plants. Then buds appeared that opened into lovely yellow flowers in the summer. Hooray! The friends cheered when they saw the lovely flowers. Berry noticed that the flowers pointed one way in the morning and another in the afternoon. Look, Dolly, they're turning their heads. That's because they always turn to face the sun. That's why they're called sunflowers. When the sun went down, the sunflowers hung their heads and went to sleep. All the forest friends were woken the next morning by shouts of panic. Oh dear, what's happened? Our lovely sunflowers! Dolly cried. Who could have done such a terrible thing? Berry wept. Someone has chewed through the stems of our sunflowers. Flutter washed their wounds with fresh dew, and Dolly bandaged them all with soft blades of grass. The sunflowers slowly started to smile again. The friends all gathered in Balthazar's house to decide what to do next. What are we going to do? Berry sobbed. Someone needs to stand guard at night. I'll go first, said Dolly bravely. The little ladybird hid quietly behind the bush and kept a close eye on the sunflowers. She didn't have to wait for very long. A hamster soon appeared and started to chew at the stems of the sunflowers. Dolly jumped out from her hiding place and shouted, "Shoo!" This surprised the hamster and he ran away. He didn't come back again that night. Flutter guarded the sunflowers the next night, and then Balthazar, and then Stanley. Soon it was Berry's turn. The little snail hid quietly behind the bush and waited. He waited and waited until he eventually fell asleep. He wasn't even woken by the sound of the hamster chewing at the sunflower stems. Oh dear, I must have fallen asleep. I didn't guard the sunflowers, Berry sobbed when he saw the sadly sagging sunflowers the following morning. Berry fell asleep. He slept while the hamster chewed the stems again. Why do you all look so sad? Asked Dr. Owl. Dolly told him what had happened to the sunflowers. I think you should talk to the hamster. Ask him not to hurt the sunflowers, Dr. Owl suggested. There he is. He's asleep in the bush, Berry whispered to the others. The noise woke the sleeping hamster. The hamster looked scared of the friends and the friends felt frightened of the hamster. There's no need to be scared of us. We just wanted to ask you not to chew our sunflowers. But then, what will I eat? The hamster told them. We'll bring you plenty of apples and carrots to nibble on. Where do you live? The little snail asked. I haven't got a house of my own, the hamster said sadly. You haven't got a house? Balthazar repeated in surprise. Then we'll build you one. Dolly brought apples, Berry brought seeds, Flutter brought raisins, Balthazar brought dandelion leaves, and Stanley brought carrots. My new house is really super, the hamster said with a cheery smile. And thank you so much for all the yummy food. The hamster never chewed the sunflower stems again, and they smiled happily at Berry and Dolly and all their friends for the rest of the summer. Berry
Berry the little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Witches. It was a warm summer day and Berry, Dolly and their friends were talking about witches.
Do you really think witches exist?
Balthazar the bee asked.
And they fly around on broomsticks at night?
I'm not sure, Berry mumbled. Then Berry and Dolly decided to walk home. Why don't we come back here later? We might see some witches, the ladybird suggested. They packed themselves a tasty picnic and went back to the meadow. They stared at the sky for a long time, but nothing happened. Come on, Dolly, let's go home. I don't think witches are real. Dolly stopped and stared. Berry, I just heard a strange noise from behind that tree. Oh, Berry, the leaves are moving. The two friends hugged each other in fright. A witch suddenly flew out and Berry and Dolly screamed. Then another witch appeared in the sky. Run, Berry, run and hide. And they ran as fast as they could. The two of them hid behind a bush. Oh, Dolly, it's too bad our friends aren't here with us. Just then the two witches landed, took off their capes and hats, and turned to smile.
But your friends are here.
It was us, Flutter and Balthazar. This made Dolly very mad. Really? You were the witches? It was very mean of you to scare us like that.
It was only meant to be a joke,
Balthazar explained. Berry was angry too. It was a very bad joke. You'll be sorry you did this. And the two friends stomped off home. We should play a joke on them now, Berry.
Do you think we should scare them too?
That's it, Dolly exclaimed. I've got an idea. Flutter and Balthazar were left standing in the meadow.
What should we do now?
They felt a bit ashamed. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea after all. Berry and Dolly ran to the ladybird's house and dressed up as little devils. They put black clothes on with black hats and added red horns to make themselves look like real devils. Hurry, Dolly! Berry was impatient. I can see them coming. They quickly jumped behind a bush and waited for Flutter and Balthazar to get close. Then they jumped out and scared the living daylights out of their friends. Help!
Devils!
The butterfly and the bee screamed.
Now do you see how bad it is when someone scares you?
The little snail said.
What? Is that you, Berry? That was a really nasty thing to do.
Nasty thing? Your witches were much scarier, Berry shouted. That's not true. The devils were scarier. That's enough, Dolly told them off. Stop this silly arguing. Let's be friends. We promise never to do it again. But you have to promise not to scare us either. You're right, the others nodded. Do you want to try the devil's hats on? Dolly asked.
Yes, please. You can try our witches' hats on if you like and sit on our broomsticks.
Whippy! This is super! Berry whooped. We're flying just like witches.
Yes,
Balthazar agreed.
like real witches.
Berry little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The football match. One morning, Stanley was woken by the sound of someone knocking on his door. Stanley, it's me, Frank. The little stag beetle crawled out of his bed and saw Frank the longhorn beetle. Hello there, Frank. It's super to see you, Stanley said, and the old pals hugged. I brought this for you. A football, hooray! We'll need teams to play a proper game, Frank reminded him. Then we'll tell the others to come and we'll have proper teams, the stag beetle suggested. The two boys called on all the others to come and play football with them. They visited every house, and by the time they had reached the edge of the forest, they had 2 teams. Alfonzo agreed to be the referee. We should sew them football shirts, Rosita suggested. One team can play in blue and one team can play in red. The footballers spent the whole week training. We sewed these for you, Zephyr told them, and she handed the red and blue shirts to Stanley. Thank you, the 2 teams said together, and they slipped on their new football shirts. Dolly and Rosita set benches up, and the spectators all sat at the side of the pitch. Alfonzo blew his referee's whistle, and the match began. That's it, run, Bubble, Stanley yelled. Here, pass it to me, Bubble shouted. Hooray! The blue team cheered as they all embraced. Come on, Reds! Come on, Blues! The crowd cheered. That's not fair, Frank. You can't touch the ball with your hand, the b-boy complained. Balthazar's right. Don't do it again, Frank. It's against the rules, the referee said. The match got very exciting. The Blues were leading 3-2 when the game stopped again. Frank tripped me up, Bubble complained. Yes, I saw that too, Alfonso agreed. I'll have to send you off if you break the rules again, Frank. Stanley's team looked set to win. Frank started to get crosser and crosser. I'm going to score a goal now, he shouted, and he pushed Berry so hard that they ended up falling over and Frank shouted out in pain. Ouch! My arm! The others all ran over. I'll run and fetch Dr. Owl, Zephyr announced. If you hadn't hurt yourself so badly, I'd send you off, Alfonzo said. Yes, I know, Frank said sadly, but my hand really hurts. Dr. Owl was soon at the scene. Well, you've broken your arm. I'll have to put it in plaster, and you'll have to keep it on for 4 weeks. You'll need to look after it and no running around. The blue team won the football match. We'll have to wait a while before we can play again, Stanley said, and he patted Frank on the back. Don't be sad, you'll soon be as fit as a fiddle again. I'm sorry that I broke the rules, Frank sniffed. I promise to play fairly when my arm has mended, and we can have another good game of football. I think we should all decorate Frank's plaster cast, Dolly said with a grin. Let's go back to my house for a snack. The big crowd of friends all piled into Dolly's spotty house. They got her crayons out and drew all kinds of funny things on the longhorn beetle's plaster. I'm going to keep it as a souvenir after Dr. Owl takes it off, Frank told them all. Then all the friends sat around the table and ate every last piece of the delicious sponge roll.
Berry the little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The board game. It was a lovely spring day and Berry was playing a board game with Flutter. They had to follow a long trail from a mouse to a piece of cheese. The winner is the first one to reach the cheese, the little butterfly girl explained. Berry started the game. He threw the dice and moved his counter. Then it was Flutter's turn. She threw the dice and moved. I won! The little snail boy shouted when his counter reached the piece of cheese. Okay, you won. Let's play it again. Berry won the second game too. I won. I'm the winner again, the little snail boy shouted with pride. Let's play another game. They started to play the game again. This time, Flutter was the first to reach the piece of cheese. I won, Berry. Now I'm the winner, the little butterfly girl announced with a grin. Berry was so upset that he hid under the pine tree, where he threw the dice so that Flutter couldn't see. I threw a 6, but Flutter told him off. That's not fair, Berry. You need to throw the dice where I can see it. No. Throw the dice again, Berry. This time he threw a 2. He got left behind and Flutter won that game. That's not fair. I want to win. That's cheating. But Berry, that's the point of a board game. One player wins and then the other wins. You can't win every time. But I can. I want to win every game, Berry whined. And he was so cross that he threw the board game down on the ground. Okay, if that's how you want it, you can play on your own. And she flew away. It'll be better on my own, Berry grumbled. He threw the dice and moved his counter. He threw again and moved his counter. And he won one game after another. But he soon got bored of the game. He tried playing the game with his teddy. But his teddy wasn't a very exciting opponent. Berry eventually set off to look for Flutter again. It was no good on my own, he thought sadly to himself. He found Flutter playing cards with Dolly, Bubble and Balthazar in the meadow. Can I play too? Berry asked shyly. Well, Berry, you can play, but you're not guaranteed to win. And I wouldn't like you to throw the cards down as well. Flutter eventually shouted after Berry. Berry, you can come and play, but only if you promise not to get cross if you don't win. I promise, Berry agreed and ran to join his pals. They sat playing cards until it got dark. Berry won one game, Flutter won another, and Bubble, Balthazar and Dolly all won one too. Berry was so happy to be playing with his friends that he forgot to get angry when he didn't win. Stanley the stag beetle flew by and shouted down to them. Look, I've carved a roasting stick. Come on, let's make a fire and roast apples. They all seemed to like the idea. Eddie the potato beetle joined them. They all helped to build a fire, sliced apples up and put them on sticks and roasted them over the glowing embers. The little gang of friends ate up all the apples they cooked. Berry gave his last piece of apple to Flutter. He really wanted to say something nice to the little butterfly girl, but all he eventually said was, "Here, this is for you." When all the apples had gone, the friends pushed their sticks into the fire and drew pictures with them in the dark night sky.
Berry the little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Pebbles. One sunny summer afternoon, Dolly decided to cook a strawberry cake. She asked Stanley the stag beetle and Balthazar the bee to go and collect wild strawberries in the forest. The two boys set off. Balthazar soon spotted a pebble in the middle of the path, and he started to kick it along. But Stanley also liked the look of the pebble, and he tackled it off Balthazar.
That's not fair, Stanley. I found it. I want to kick it down the path.
It's my pebble now. Find another pebble to kick.
But I found it, so it's mine.
Balthazar moaned. There are loads of pebbles. Find another one, Stanley said, trying to close the argument. But Balthazar wouldn't leave it at that. He pushed Stanley out of the way so that he could kick the pebble. The two of them continued to push and shove until they both tumbled down the hill into the babbling brook. Alfonzo the cricket came out of his house to see what all the noise was about. What's going on? He asked.
It's all Stanley's fault. He took my pebble.
It wasn't your pebble. I was just a better kicker. That's enough of that, Alfonzo interrupted. Come inside, get dry, and then tell me all about what started this silly argument. The two boys muttered to themselves as they followed the cricket into his little house. They hung their wet clothes out in the hot sun and sat wrapped in towels while they waited for them to dry. Alfonzo gave them both a glass of lemonade and a biscuit. The sun's warm rays soon dried the clothes. Stanley and Balthazar munched sulkily on their biscuits. They told Alfonzo all about what had happened and how they had rolled down the hill into the brook. I've got a whole collection of pebbles.
Pebbles? Can we have a look?
Balthazar enthused. Of course, Alfonzo said with a proud smile, and he placed a large box on the table. Where did you find all these lovely pebbles? Stanley asked. Down by the brook. You can collect some too if you like. They filled their baskets with pebbles. They sat sorting them and organising them until it started to get dark. The little stag beetle and the bee boy said goodbye to their cricket friend and started to walk back up the hill. They soon came to Dolly's house. The little ladybird girl shouted angrily out of the window. Where are the strawberries? Oh dear.
The strawberries?
We forgot the strawberries.
Dolly, look at the lovely pebbles we collected with Alfonzo.
What am I supposed to do with them? Make pebble cakes? I asked for strawberries. But we forgot, Stanley admitted, and he told her the whole long story. Well, I see. Let me have a look at those pebbles, if you didn't bring any strawberries. We should paint something on them. This one looks just like a little house. And this one, I might paint a smiley face on it.
That's a super idea. We can invite the others and spend all day painting pebbles.
Great! The next morning, Berry the little snail boy arrived at Dolly's house with Flutter the butterfly, Zephyr the dragonfly, Leapy the grasshopper, Eddie the potato beetle and Bubble the baby beetle. Where are Stanley and Balthazar? Berry asked with a disappointed sigh. Here we are, the stag beetle and the bee boy announced, and they proudly presented Dolly with a big basket of strawberries. Oh, thank you, the little ladybird girl said, and she mixed the cake while the others got to work painting the pebbles. When they had finished, they invited Alfonzo to come and see their exhibition. They all look really good. I'll bring my pebbles tomorrow and we can paint them too, the cricket told his friends. When the strawberry cake was ready, they all sat around the table and ate every last crumb.
Berry the little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Kindergarten. One autumn morning, Dolly knocked excitedly on Berry's door. Come quickly, Berry, or we'll be late. Berry got ready and the two friends held hands and walked to the nursery together. Lots of little children were gathered in the playground. They were all so happy to see each other. There was Balthazar the bee, Flutter the butterfly, Stanley the stag beetle, Eddie the potato beetle, Zephyr the dragonfly, Alfonzo the cricket, Leapy the grasshopper, and Bubble the baby beetle. Mrs. Bumblebee patiently guided everybody into their classrooms. The little, middle and top children went into different rooms. Bubble was in the little group. He waved to Berry and Dolly from the doorway. The day started with exercises. After breakfast, the children made beautiful pictures using the leaves they collected in the woods. When everybody had finished, Mrs. Bumblebee gathered the children in a circle. She taught them lots of songs and games. The children all danced around. Then it was playtime. Mrs. Bumblebee sat in a rocking chair and watched the children. Berry and the boys ran straight over to the car box and started playing cars. They built ramps and tunnels. Can I join in, boys? Dolly asked. She was holding a broken red car. Oh no, Dolly, you can't play cars with that old thing, Berry told her. And anyway, cars are for boys, not girls. That made Dolly cry. The boys don't want to play with me, she told Flutter. Flutter, Leapy and Zephyr quickly cheered her up. Come and play with us. We're playing with dolls. The girls dressed their dolls in pretty dresses, fed them and rocked them to sleep. Dolly liked this game a lot. Then Berry got into an argument with Morris the Maybug. You keep knocking my car over. It's not fair. You're a cheat. That's not true. You're a cheat, replied Morris. That's it. I'm not playing with you anymore, Berry said sulkily and left the boys. Can I join in your game? Berry asked his friend Dolly. You can't play with us. It's a girls' game, Dolly sulked. But I brought this doll with me. It's got curly hair. I want to play with you. All right. Come and play with us. But now you have to let me play cars with you. Children, time to wash your hands, Mrs. Bumblebee shouted. Then go and sit down at the tables. Mrs. Earwig, the dinner lady, dished up their dinner. When everybody had finished eating, Berry and Dolly collected up all the plates and glasses. Then the children had a little lie down while Mrs. Bumblebee read them a story. They all listened in silence, and a few of them fell fast asleep. When they got up, they all had a snack and went out into the playground. It was enormous and filled with all kinds of slides, climbing frames and swings, with a big wooden train in the middle. Berry and Morris quickly made friends again and played on the swings together. Dolly helped Bubble up the slide and caught him at the bottom. Bubble liked that a lot. The rest of the day flew by, and soon the children were waving goodbye to each other. They couldn't wait for tomorrow to come.
Berry Berry the little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Blueberries. One sunny autumn day, Berry and Dolly went into the forest to pick blueberries. Their friends Flutter the butterfly and Eddie the potato beetle went with them.
I'm going to pick the most blueberries,
Eddie announced.
Look, this bush is full of ripe blueberries,
The little snail said.
I'm going to pick them all.
But Eddie jumped in front of Berry and quickly picked the biggest berries.
This bush is full of berries too,
Dolly told the others. But the little potato beetle was faster again. By the time Dolly got to the bush, he'd already picked the best of the berries.
Eddie, that's not fair. Don't pick all the berries,
the little ladybird complained. Then the friends came to a stream.
Let's build a bridge over the stream. I know exactly how. Let's all go and bring that big log here.
They all had to work hard to pull the heavy log over the stream. The little friends made a super bridge together.
It's done,
Flutter sighed.
Look, there's another blueberry bush with lots of berries on it.
That was Eddie's cue.
I'm going to get there first. Those blueberries are all mine,
he shouted triumphantly. But he pushed past Flutter so hard that she slipped and fell into the stream.
Help!
Don't worry, Flutter. Hold on to me, Dolly shouted and stretched her hand out to the floundering butterfly. But the water flowed too fast and Flutter couldn't reach Dolly. Berry picked up a long stick.
Grab the stick, Flutter,
he shouted. But this didn't work either because the river started to carry the little butterfly away.
Eddie, help! We've got to pull poor Flutter out of the water,
Dolly yelled, and they pulled the soggy butterfly out of the stream.
Oh my, I'm so cold. I'm very, very cold. And my little wings are soaked through.
Here, take my jumper. It's all my fault. I'm so sorry, Flutter.
That's very nice of you. But you'll catch a cold too without your jumper. We should collect a large pile of leaves and wrap Flutter up in them.
Berry, Dolly and Eddie gathered a big bunch of burdock leaves and covered the shivering butterfly with them.
I'm still very cold and my wings don't work. Look, they're all wet and ruined.
Flutter started to sob. The sun took pity on the weeping butterfly and came down close to warm her wings. Flutter's wings were soon beautifully dry and as good as new.
Hooray! I'm all dry and warm at last. Thank you, sun,
Flutter said with a smile.
I'm so sorry, Flutter,
Eddie said.
I promise I won't pick all the blueberries next time. I want you to have all the ones that I've picked. Thank you, Eddie. Why don't we share them instead? Let's hurry home and bake a blueberry pie.
The friends all walked back to Flutter's house and got to work straight away. They picked all the leaves off and gave the blueberries a good wash. Spoons stirred and pans clattered until the kitchen was filled with the sweet smell of delicious blueberry pie. The yummy dessert was soon ready. Stanley the stag beetle, Balthazar the bee and Bubble the baby beetle came along to join the feast. The forest friends all sat around the table and chatted late into the night.
Berry little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail. Always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The Mushroom's Cap. Berry, Dolly, Balthazar, Flutter, Stanley and Bubble all set off for a long walk in the woods. They were strolling happily along when they heard someone crying.
It's coming from behind that bush,
Berry whispered to the others. They saw a little mushroom crying, and he looked odd because he didn't have a cap.
Who took your cap?
Dolly asked in her kindest voice.
I don't know. It was missing when I woke up this morning.
Don't worry, we'll help you. We'll find you another cap, Berry reassured the miserable mushroom. The friends all ran back to their houses and returned carrying all kinds of different caps and hats.
We've brought some new hats to try,
they said, and tried them all on the mushroom's head in turn. Dolly put her dotted hat on him first, but it didn't seem to suit the mushroom at all. Then Flutter put her witch's hat on his head.
But I don't want to be a nasty witch,
the mushroom grumbled. Then Bubble produced a yellow baseball cap, but it was too small. Berry was next to try. I've brought two hats. This is my gardening hat, and this is my devil's hat. The gardening hat looked funny on the mushroom's head, but he wasn't happy.
I don't like this one,
he said in a sullen voice. The devil's hat made him even angrier.
I'm not a little devil, you know,
he shouted with a red face. But he got most upset when Balthazar showed him the red saucepan.
But this is a saucepan. I can't go around with a silly saucepan.
It's not a normal saucepan,
Balthazar replied sharply.
It's our snowman's hat.
The last one to try was Stanley the stag beetle, who had brought a top hat for the mushroom.
Oh, I quite like the look of this one,
the mushroom enthused.
But can't you find my old cap? That's the one I want to wear the most.
So the forest friends started to search for the mushroom's spotty cap. 3 canary chicks suddenly flew by.
We know where the mushroom's cap is. We saw 3 woodworms using it for a rowing boat.
Everyone down to the stream, Dolly shouted. And sure enough, 3 woodworms were singing and rowing along in the mushroom's cap. Give the mushroom his cap back, Berry shouted.
But we promised to go visit our friends the fleas. We need a boat to get to their house.
But that's a cap, not a boat, and it belongs to the mushroom. Give it back to him, Berry argued. The woodworms eventually gave in and gave the cap back.
But how will we go and see the fleas now?
They asked sadly.
We can take you. We're flying to the little island,
the 3 canary chicks twittered.
Hooray! We're going to fly!
The woodworms shouted and jumped for joy.
But we have to take the mushroom his cap back first. You mean the boat?
The naughty woodworms chuckled, but Dolly gave them one of her serious looks and they stopped laughing.
Thank you so much,
the mushroom said with a big smile as he put it on his head.
It fits just perfectly.
The woodworms hopped onto the canaries' backs.
Have a safe trip,
the mushroom shouted. Enjoy the flight, the others added. The forest friends all said a final goodbye to the mushroom and walked home with their hats on their heads.
Berry
Berry the little snail and Dolly the ladybird play with their forest friends in their happy little world. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the little snail, always fun games to play, always a brand new tale. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Alfonzo's Fiddle. One autumn day, Alfonzo the cricket stood happily playing his fiddle in the mushroom field. The forest friends were all enjoying the lovely music. The little ants were playing football on the hill. But oh dear, the ball bounced away and knocked the fiddle clean out of Alfonzo's hands. Alfonzo shouted in horror,
My fiddle! My fiddle's broken!
and then he burst into tears. He was sobbing so loudly that everyone came to see what the fuss was all about. Alfonzo pointed angrily at the spotty ball.
That ball is to blame, and those naughty ants. Where am I going to get a fiddle from now?
He picked his broken fiddle up, went into his house and slammed the door shut behind him. Alfonzo, come out. I'm sure we can help you, Berry pleaded. But Alfonzo didn't want to see anybody. His friends sat sadly in the mushroom field and didn't know what to do. Then Dolly had an idea. I know. Let's make Alfonzo a new fiddle. Yes, let's make a new fiddle. Flutter the butterfly nodded. I know who can help us. We have to find Charlie the click beetle. He made Alfonzo's first fiddle. The band of friends set off and walked until they reached a blue house. They knocked on the door. A tiny, timid beetle popped his head out. He wore a blue hat and had beautiful dark blue wings. Who are you? He asked. Dolly told Charlie the whole story. Oh, don't be sad. If that's your problem, I'm happy to help. Alfonzo will be playing music on his new fiddle in no time at all. The click beetle gave everybody a job to do. Some collected wood for the body of the fiddle, while others gathered grass for the strings. Now he had everything he needed. Charlie got to work. He sawed, sanded, polished and waxed. And then, like a little miracle, the new fiddle was ready. Can I try it? Dolly asked. No, it's Alfonzo's instrument, Flutter told her. But I want to have my own musical instrument, Dolly sulked. Me too, the little ants shouted. Quiet, said Charlie. Why don't you all start an orchestra? A great big orchestra. Like a music band? And everybody could have their own instrument? That's a very good idea. The first thing they made was a harp for Dolly. Stanley the stag beetle got a double bass, and Eddie the potato beetle had a cello. Berry made a trumpet out of a lily. Morris the maybug made a horn from a honeysuckle flower. The big spider used horse chestnuts and acorns for drums, whilst Zephyr and Leapy made cymbals out of pebbles. Charlie carved flutes from birch twigs for the ants. Flutter the butterfly got a lute, and Balthazar the bee got a zither. Bubble the baby beetle played a triangle. They all had a quick practice and then headed for Alfonzo's house. Alfonzo heard the music and looked out of his window to see where it was coming from. He was surprised by what he saw. Please, Alfonzo, the little ant began. Don't be mad at us for breaking your fiddle. We'd like you to have this new one as a present. Charlie made it. Alfonzo began to play straight away, and the sound of his fiddle filled the forest once more.